The chase is your cage, you are told. That power belongs to the one who runs hardest, who reaches farthest, who pursues without rest. Yet the more you chase, the more you reveal what you lack. The act itself confesses dependence, not power. Hunger, from hunter to prey. This is why your victories feel hollow. Each pursuit bleeds energy, yet the target slips further away. The faster you move, the weaker you appear. The more you prove desire, the less they see your value. To chase is to announce, I do not have, so I must seek. You know this feeling. Exhaustion after another performance to impress. Invisibility after stretching yourself to be noticed. Rejection after contorting into shapes that never fit. These are not accidents. They are symptoms of a flawed frame. The chaser identity is a cage of your own construction. Its bars are forged from constant outreach, relentless explanation, eager smiles that beg for recognition. You think you are hunting, but in truth you are signaling prey. The one who chases has already admitted defeat, for he has given the other the role of selector. Understand this. Attention gained by pursuit is not loyalty, it is pity. Respect earned by begging is not respect, it is tolerance. Affection won by chasing is not love, it is leverage against you. To chase is to be measured, and once measured, you are managed. A man who runs toward everything runs away from himself. The more you scatter your energy outward, the less gravity you possess inward. What you seek to hold, you push away by reaching too far. This is the paradox. The chase does not bring you closer. It guarantees distance. You were never meant to exhaust yourself in the pursuit of recognition. Power is not earned through restless motion. It is revealed through stillness, through refusal, through the gravity that pulls instead of the hunger that grasps. Chasing advertises emptiness. Radiance demonstrates fullness. You must see the game for what it is. They are not impressed by your pursuit. They are confirmed in their superiority by it. They are not drawn to your hunger. They are repelled by it. Chasten's not strategy, it is surrender dressed in effort. The reset begins here. You no longer define yourself by how quickly you move toward others, but by how firmly you remain rooted in yourself. Not restless, grounded, not dependent, decisive. From running after the world to having the world run after you. This cage was invisible until now, but now you see the bars clearly. And on Ascension they can be broken. The question is no longer how hard you can chase, but how completely you can stop. And in stopping, you will learn the first truth of power. It is never pursued, only possessed. Next comes the deeper deception, the lie of acquisition that must be dismantled before sovereignty can begin. The lie of acquisition. You have been trained to believe that power is a prize waiting at the end of endless accumulation. Titles, wealth, followers, validation, the external tokens that promise to elevate you. But notice the trap. Each token requires someone else to grant it. Each badge confirms dependency, not sovereignty. Permission. From supposed independence to subtle servitude. This is the great deception, the belief that if you collect enough, you will finally arrive. Yet the arrival never comes. The pile grows higher, but the hunger grows deeper. You do not own these tokens. They own you. You become their custodian, not their commander. Understand this. Power that must be given can be taken. Power that depends on recognition dissolves when recognition fades. If you require applause to feel certain, then silence becomes your executioner. If you need possession to feel secure, then loss becomes your tyrant. The mainstream feeds this illusion because it sells endlessly. Do more, acquire more, become more. It frames power as a product available for purchase, available for performance. But consumption cannot create sovereignty. You cannot buy gravity. You cannot chase presence. What radiates from you is not determined by what you acquire, but by what you embody. True presence is not accumulation, it is emanate. A fire does not beg for oxygen. It consumes because it exists. A mountain does not demand recognition. It is acknowledged because it endures. So, too, must your identity shift. From consumer of approval to architect of presence, from restless collection to effortless projection. Think of those you silently respect. It is not because they chase your attention or flash their acquisitions. It is because they radiate an unshakable centeredness. They are unmoved by trends, untouched by scarcity, unbent by opinion. Their gravity pulls without grasping. The lie of acquisition keeps you running in circles, always grasping, never arriving. It whispers, "More is the answer." Yet the truth is simpler and far more ruthless. Power is not found in gain, but in restraint. Not in what you hold, but in what you refuse to need. When you chase accumulation, you become inflated, fragile, always at risk of deflation. When you radiate emanation, you become dense, unshakable, impossible to ignore. The world bends to gravity, not noise. Remember this aphorism. The moment you require their approval, you forfeit their respect. Dependence is the invisible tax on every acquisition. The crowd can crown you today and strip you tomorrow, but no one can touch the authority that emanates from within. You must dismantle the conditioning that told you to build power like a collection. Stop stacking what can be toppled. Begin forging what cannot be moved. The throne you seek is not handed down. It rises from the ground you stand upon. This is the pivot. No more performance of gain. No more addiction to approval. Power is not what you pursue. It is what you project. And to project, you must first confront the roots of weakness, the origin story of the identity you were trained to wear. That is where we go next. The forging of weakness. You were not born powerless. You were forged into it. The cage was built long before you could name it, and you were trained to decorate its bars. What felt like innocence was in fact conditioning, not purity. Programming. From blank slate to obedient subject, from the first lessons, you were taught that approval is survival. Smile to be liked. Agree to be safe. Wait to be chosen. This was not wisdom, it was obedience training. Authority demanded compliance, and compliance became identity. They told you niceness as virtue, when in truth it was your leash. The myth of niceness masked a brutal exchange. Surrender your edge, silence your voice, and in return you will be tolerated. But tolerance is not respect. It is dismissal with a polite face. The good boy, the pleasant girl, the agreeable follower, they all trade power for conditional acceptance. Think back. In classrooms, obedience was rewarded, while defiance was punished. At home, pleasing was praised, questioning dismissed. In friendships, you learned to earn belonging by shrinking yourself. Each repetition carved grooves in your mind until the role felt natural. But natural it was not, it was sculpted. You were not acting freely. You were rehearsing dependence. This conditioning created the powerless self. Follower. The one who seeks instruction before action, who waits for permission before speaking, who confuses servitude with virtue. This is the origin of weakness. Not lack of strength, but misdirected loyalty. You were loyal to the approval of others, disloyal to the authority within yourself. Niceness was sold to you as moral superiority, but it was camouflage for fear. Fear of rejection, fear of exclusion, fear of standing alone. To be nice was to avoid cost. Yet in avoiding cost, you lost value. You diluted presence. You Orestes command. Understand this clearly. There is nothing noble in erasing yourself to make others comfortable. There is nothing virtuous about waiting endlessly to be chosen. Weakness is not humility, it is abdication. But now you see the split. You are not condemned to remain the follower. The same conditioning that taught you to surrender can be rewired to teach you to decide. The power that was suppressed was never destroyed. It waits beneath layers of compliance. From trained follower to conscious decider, that is the path forward. You must look at the old self without sentiment, without excuse. See the cage for what it is. Not your nature, but your training. And don't say Shane, you can no longer pretend you were born to obey. This recognition is not the end, it is the beginning. Because next comes the decisive break, the moment where you name the two identities, the chaser and the source, and choose which one you will inhabit. Split in the self, chaser versus source. Now the fracture becomes visible. You are not a single self, you are a battlefield of two identities. On one side stands the chaser, restless, loud, dependent. On the other stands the source, selective, silent, gravitational, not supplication. Selection, from faucet-wasting flow to gatekeeper of energy. The chaser identity is familiar. It is the one you have rehearsed for years. Always moving toward others. Always proving. Always speaking louder than necessary. Explaining longer than asked. Offering more than required. Its rhythm is desperation, disguised as enthusiasm. Its core belief, if I do not chase, I will be forgotten. But the paradox is merciless. The more you chase, the more invisible you become. Like a faucet left running, your value leaks out in plain sight. What is abundant and unguarded is taken for granted. The chaser confuses movement for influence, noise for presence, effort for authority. Yet the outcome is the same. Exhaustion, neglect, rejection. Now contrast this with the source. The source does not pursue, it selects. The source does not shout, it radiates. The source does not scatter energy. It consolidates into gravity. People move toward the source, not because of chasing, but because of the unmistakable pull of self-possession. To live as the source is to become a gatekeeper of energy. Your time, your attention, your words rare, measured, deliberate. Scarcity creates value, and value creates reverence. When you speak less, each word carries more weight. When you move less, each action is magnified. Silence becomes your ally, and restraint becomes your amplifier. This split is not subtle, it is decisiva. The chaser bleeds. The chaser waits to be chosen. The source does the choosing. The chaser is a consumer of approval. The source is an architect of presence. The stakes could not be higher. Remain a chaser and your life becomes an endless treadmill motion without arrival, effort without recognition. Shift into the source, and your life reorders itself around your gravity. Opportunities align, people lean in, respect proceeds. You do not demand the throne forms beneath your feet. But do not confuse the source with arrogance. The source is not inflated, not desperate for display. It is grounded, immovable, sovereign. To become the source is not to dominate others, it is to master yourself so completely that others cannot help but recognize it. The question is not whether you have both identities. The chaser and the source exist within you now. The question is which one you will crown. Every choice, every interaction, every silence declares allegiance to one or the other. Understand this. Power is not about what you reach for. It is about what you refuse to chase. Authority is not about how much you demand. It is about how much you emanate. The split is clear. The decision is yours. And to cross from chaser to source, you will need laws, non-negotiable edicts that govern this transformation without compromise. The laws of power sovereignty. You now stand at the threshold. The split has been revealed. Chaser or source. But awareness alone is not enough. Choice without structure collapses into relapse. To hold sovereignty, you must obey laws immutable, unbending, non-negotiable. Not guidelines, commandments. From arbitrary tactics to binding codes, these are not clever tricks for short-term gain. They are edicts for life. Break them, and you betray yourself. Keep them, and you ascend beyond reach. The first law, the law of centered gravity. Power is not proven by pursuit. It is declared by immovability. The source does not orbit others. It is the center they orbit around. To obey this law is to make stillness your weapon. Your worth is not a performance. It is a presence. Think of gravity itself. It does not chase planets. It anchors them. It does not persuade or plead. It holds by existing in undeniable density. You must become dense with self-certain, anchored in your own axis, unwilling to be pulled by every request, every distraction, every invitation. This law commands that you stop running outward for recognition. Your movements must emerge from your center, not from the pressure of the crowd. To live by it is to say, I am the weight, empty axis. I am the ground others stand upon. Break it, and you become weightless, drifting with the tides of other people's desires. Aphorism. The one who cannot be moved becomes the one who cannot be ignored. The second law, the law of selective response. Not every word deserves your answer. Not every question deserves your explanation. The chaser reacts, the source selects. To obey this law is to treat your attention as currencies scarce, valuable, never spent on the trivial. When provoked, the chaser defends, explains, justifies. Each reaction confesses insecurity. The source, however, understands that silence is stronger than scramble, and choice is stronger than reflex. You do not engage every battle. You choose the battleground where your presence has maximum impact. This law demands ruthless filtering. Before speaking, before replying, you must ask, does this deserve my energy? Does this advance my sovereignty? If not, you let it pass unanswered. Selective response is not cowardice, it is conservation of power. Aphorism, every reply is a declaration of value. What you answer, you crown. The third law, the law of scarcity, projection, abundance of words, abundance of access, abundance of self. These dilute presence. Scarcity intensifies it. What is rare commands attention. What is constant fades into background. The chaser the source withholds. This law commands you to be deliberate in your exposure. Your time is rare, your access limited, your presence never on demand. Not to tease, not to manipulate, but to reflect reality. You are finite and therefore valuable. Projecting scarcity is not withdrawal from life, it is carration of energy. Show up rarely but decisively, and you will be remembered. Offer yourself constantly, and you will be consumed without reverence. Aphorism, when presence is scarce, absence speaks louder than noise. The fourth law, the law of ritual silence. Noise is the chaser's addiction. Silence is the source's crown. To obey this law is to master the discipline of withholding words, not out of fear, but out of command. Silence has three rituals: silence before speech, silence after speech, and silence instead of speech. Each ritual deepens your weight. When you pause before speaking, you gather authority. When you allow your words to hang without rush, you let them sink into others. When you choose not to answer at all, you elevate beyond reach. This silence is not passive. It is active presence. It says more than chatter ever could. To break this law is to scatter your energy into the void of noise. To keep it is to turn silence into a weapon sharper than words. Aphorism. Speech is silver. Silence is the throne it rests on. The fifth law, the law of self-alignment. The final law crowns the rest. Your inner world must match your outer projection. Without alignment, you are only a performer. With alignment, you are a sovereign. Self-alignment demands ruthless honesty. Your actions must echo your words. Your rituals must reinforce your values. Your habits must embody your presence. The chaser says one thing and does another. The source is seamless. No contradiction. No fracture. This law destroys hypocrisy, which is the quickest way to lose power. The moment your image collapses against your reality, your gravity dissolves. Self-alignment makes you untouchable, because there is nothing to expose. Aphorism. When the inner world and the outer face align, presence becomes unbreakable. These 5 laws are not suggestions. They are your constitution. Violate them, and you collapse back into the chaser's cage. Live them, and you rise as the source elective, sovereign, gravitational. You now hold the edicts, but edicts without practice remain abstract. To bring sovereignty into muscle, voice, and movement, you must carve a behavioral code that embodies these laws in daily microactions. That is what comes next. Laws without embodiment are nothing but air. You cannot declare sovereignty while moving like a... Presence is not an idea, it is a discipline sculpted into the body. carved into the voice, carried in every gesture, not performance. Embodiment. From pretending to disciplined calibration, this code is the translation of power into motion. Begin with the eyes. The chaser scans, flickers, darts always seeking cues, always begging for permission. The source holds. Your gaze must become a steady anchor. Not aggressive, not invasive, but unmoved. When you look, you do not flinch. When you listen, you do not scatter. Hold a moment longer than comfort, and the weight transfers. The world interprets steady eyes as certainty. Next, your speech. The chaser rushes, fills silence, accelerates under pressure. The source slows. Tempo is gravity. When you speak with measured cadence, each word gathers mass. Pauses are not gaps. They are proof of command. Your voice drops half a note lower than usual, not strained, but grounded. Let words land like stone, not like sand scattered by wind. Then comes refusal. The chaser explains every no, bending over backwards to soften rejection. The source does not decorate. Develop refusal rituals. Short, firm, final. That will not work for me. No, I'm not available. Nothing added. Nothing excused. The more concise the refusal, the greater the weight. Remember, every explanation leaks power. Every unnecessary word seeds ground. Posture is next. The chaser fidgets, leans, collapses into space. The source holds, lines spine aligned, shoulders back, stillness in the limbs. To practice immovability, enter a room and plant yourself as though the floor recognizes you. Do not fold your arms in defense or shuffle to prove comfort. Stillness is not stiffness. It is rootedness. You are not waiting, you are reigning. Even in movement, restraint is key. Walk with deliberate pace. No rush, no shuffle, no stutter of indecision. When you arrive fully. When you depart without haste. The chaser's feet chase. The source's steps declare, your language must reflect this code as well. Remove, filer just. Maybe, I think. These are concessions dressed as words. Replace them with declaratives. Speak in absolutes where truth allows. Not, I'll try. Say I will. Not, maybe later. Say, not now. This clarity is not. Crudiate, silence itself is a behavior. Train yourself to withhold comment in moments of pressure. In negotiation, in argument, in conflict, let others rush into the vacuum. They will reveal their weakness. You will confirm your strength. A man who can hold silence holds the room. The code of conduct is not cosmetic. It is not performance you switch on under watchful eyes. It must be drilled until it is reflex. Practice in solitude. Hold steady gaze at your reflection. Record your voice until cadence slows. Stand in stillness until fidgets die. Sovereignty must be rehearsed until it dissolves into identity. Understand this. Presence is architecture. Every gesture is a brick. Every pause is mortar. When you embody the code, you construct a fortress others feel without explanation. This is your behavioral blueprint. But a blueprint demands testing. To prove its strength, you must step into the world's arena's work. Social life, desire, negotiation, and apply the code where it matters most. That is where we go next. The fields of application. Laws and codes are forged in solitude, but their truth is revealed in the field. Power does not remain abstract. It must withstand the weight of real encounters, not theory. Praxis. From private rehearsal to public command. Here is where the source identity is stress-tested, in the workplace, in social influence, in the gravity of desire. First, workplace. That chaser identity thrives here because the culture rewards over-explaining, over-promising, overworking. Yet notice who actually commands. It is not the one who speaks most, but the one who selects when to speak. Apply your code, Enter meetings not with floods of words, but with statements measured and final. Contribute late, contribute little, but contribute weight. When others scramble to fill silence, you anchor Italiano. Colleagues will begin to orbit, not because of your volume, but because of your gravity. Leadership is not shown in frantic effort, it is revealed in selective authority. Second, a realm of social influence. Parties, gatherings, circles of peers. The chaser seeks to be everywhere, talking to everyone, trying to be noticed through motion. The source understands that scarcity magnifies. Position yourself deliberately one space, one conversation, one anchor point. Do not chase the crowd. Let the crowd adjust around you. Speak less, ask more, and hold eye contact long enough to remind them that you are present, not performing. In social spheres, people remember not the loudest, but the one whose silence lingered after departure. Third, the field of desire, the gravitational pull of romantic dynamics. The chaser floods the space with need. Texts, questions, compliments, constant pursuit. This corrodes attraction, because dependence kills mystery. The source does not chase, it chooses. Contact is precise, not constant. Compliments are rare, but genuine. Presence is given, not begged for. The ritual of silence is most powerful here. When you resist the urge to fill space, you invite others to lean into it. What is scarce is desired. What is desperate is discarded. Attraction follows gravity, not grasping. Across these arenas, the code reveals its power. In the office where decisions are made, in the social sphere where status circulates, in intimacy where desire unfolds. Each is an arena where the chaser identity collapses into noise and exhaustion. Each is an arena where the source, steady and selective, rises above. Understand this. The fields of application are not exceptions, they are confirmations. If the code cannot survive here, it is no code at all. Power must hold under pressure, under scrutiny, under temptation. Only then does it cease to be practice and become presence. And yet, external application is not the final test. Sovereignty begins and ends in the mind. Without psychological command, emotional steadiness, unreachability, redirection, you remain vulnerable. That inner fortress is where we turn next. Psychological command, the outer code collapses without an inner fortress. You can hold posture, control speech, and project scarcity. But if your emotions fracture at provocation, sovereignty dissolves. Power begins in the mind, not reaction. Direction. From volatility to immovable command. The chaser is ruled by impulse. Every insult is taken personally. Every silence feels like rejection. Every delay sparks anxiety. This volatility exposes the truth. He has no center. His emotions are outsourced, always at the mercy of others. To live this way is to hand strangers the keys to your state. The source cannot be moved so easily. Psychological command is the refusal to surrender your equilibrium. It is not the absence of feeling, it is the mastery of response. Rage may rise, fear may whisper, but they do not dictate your action. You are the ruler, not the subject of your emotional kingdom. How is this built? Through 3 disciplines. First, steadiness. Practice slowing the gap between stimulus and response. Count breaths before you answer. Let silence absorb the sting of insult. In that gap, volatility loses its power. Second, imperviousness. Reframe attacks not as wounds, but as data. What others say reflects them, not you. A sovereign is not pierced by the projections of the powerless. Third, redirection. Instead of defending against provocation, redirect it. When accused, ask questions. When pressured, shift the frame. Defense is confession. Redirection is command. Consider the difference. The volatile person hears criticism and scrambles to explain. The sovereign hears it, pauses, then says, "Interesting. Why do you think that?" Suddenly the attacker is on trial, and you remain untouched. This is not evasion, it is control. Understand this. Cruelty is not strength. The tyrant lashes out because he is weak inside. True sovereignty is steady, restrained, ethical. Power without control is tyranny. Power with command is leadership. The fortress you build is not a wall to harm others, is protection against being ruled by them. Aphorism: he who controls himself cannot be controlled by another. With psychological command, the outer code becomes unbreakable. Your silence gains weight because it is not. For it is choice. Your refusals carry gravity because they are not anger, they are calibration. Your posture radiates immovability because it is backed by an inner axis that does not bend. This is the inner citadel, but the path is not free from doubt. Many will question whether such power is cold, manipulative, even dangerous. The next step is to confront those objections directly and carve the ethical guardrails that keep sovereignty from corruption. Guardrails of ruthless ethics. Power without ethics decays into tyranny. Influence without restraint curdles into manipulation. The moment you abandon principle, you are no longer sovereign, you are a predator dressed in regalia. Not domination, stewardship. From predator to sovereign ruler, the objections will come. Isn't this manipulative? Won't this make me cold? They arise because most have only seen power misused. They confuse sovereignty with cruelty, command with exploitation, but understand this. Discipline is not manipulation, it is calibration. Restraint is not coldness, it is clarity. The chaser manipulates through desperation, overpromising, flattering, bending, disguising intent. The tyrant manipulates through fear, crushing, intimidating, coercing. The source needs neither. It is transparent, grounded, unwavering. When you embody gravity, others are free to orbit or to depart. There is no hook, no trap, no lease, only choice. Here lies the first boundary. Sovereignty does not remove choice from others. It amplifies their clarity. By holding stillness, you force them to decide whether to step closer or step away. That is not coercion, it is revelation. The second boundary. Sovereignty never feeds on the weak. Predators exploit those with rulers elevate those they touch. Your power must be directional, uplifting allies, protecting those in your orbit, refusing to cheapen yourself through cruelty. Remember, tyranny burns quickly but ends in revolt. Stewardship endures because it builds loyalty, not fear. The third boundary. Never confuse emotional steadiness with absence of humanity. To remain unmoved by provocation is not to become numb. It is to remain in command, so you may choose compassion deliberately rather than scatter it recklessly. Coldness is the armor of the insecure. Calmness is the shield of the sovereign. These guardrails matter, because without them, the identity you build collapses into caricatured, another hungry tyrant, desperate for control. Sovereignty requires more discipline without cruelty, power with honor, presence with restraint. Aphorism: the true sovereign does not demand fear, he commands respect. By holding to these boundaries, you ensure that your power serves not only yourself, but the order you create around you. This is the difference between a predator who consumes and a ruler who sustains. And when the guardrails are set, nothing remains but the final crystallization of identity, the ascension into source, and the decree that ends all chasing forever. That is the command that closes this path. De Ascension y final decree. Every step has led here. The cage of chasing exposed, the lie of acquisition dismantled, the weakness forged by conditioning stripped away, the split in the self clarified, the laws delivered, the code embodied, the fields tested, the commands secured, the ethics established. Now comes the crystallization, the moment you no longer speak as the chaser, but as the source. The old self dies here, not waiting, commanding. From seeker of thrones to the throne itself. This is the ascension, the pivot, where you stop reaching outward and begin radiating inward. The chaser craved acknowledgement. The source emanates gravity. The chaser begged for entry. The source becomes the ground others must approach. Understand, power is not noise. It is not motion. It is not the frantic sprint for visibility. Power is stillness. Power is presence. Power is the silence that pulls voices toward it. The weak think they rise by grasping. The sovereign rises by remaining immovable. To ascend, you enact 3 transformations. First, approval is no longer your oxygen. You breathe regardless of who notices. Second, rejection is no longer your death. You stand whether they stay or flee. Third, attention is no longer your currency. Your value is set by your discipline, not their applause. This is why sovereignty feels rare. Most people will never bear the weight of solitude. They seek safety in pursuit, thinking activity equals progress. But the source knows stillness is greater than speed, clarity greater than volume, choice greater than chance. When you ascend, your very being becomes decree. Every gesture, every pause, every refusal declares authority. You no longer need to announce power. You radiate it. Presence itself becomes command. And now, the final decree. Not advice, not suggestion, command. Stop seeking. Start embodying. End the chase. Erase the hunger. Refuse the cage. Walk as if the ground were yours. Speak as if silence preceded you. Choose as if every decision sets law. Because it does. You are no longer the one who knocks. You are the door. No longer the seeker of thrones. You are the throne itself. Final command. From this moment forward, you are the source. Do not chase. Do not plead. Do not wait. Embody, command. Radiate. This is your law, now and changing. Immovable, sovereign. Ascension is not a reward. It is a replacement. The old you is gone. The throne is filled, and it is filled by you.